Hey, welcome to another broadcast. Let's go ahead and let's get it. Really appreciate each and every one of you guys being here. Welcome again to another live broadcast. So glad that you guys can join us. Tonight, we're going to have a very interesting, yet another interesting conversation. Jesus is black. Jesus is black. Now, many of you've heard that for years and years and years. Am I here to say that he's not? No, I'm not going to say that at all, okay? But we're going to take a very interesting perspective on that and what it really means. And is it really as empowering as you think it is when it comes to us as black folks? Well, we're going to look into that, okay? But in the meantime, we're going to give people time to get on and we're going to start that conversation, okay? Make sure you check out our website, sambatree.com. And if you haven't checked out our latest, we just started this Sunday. I think that's going to be a Sunday thing we're going to start doing. We're going to start doing like a music show where it's going to be mostly music. I may chime in every now and then, but that will be here on this platform. Over on Samba Tree YouTube page, we're going to have a playlist where it's just nothing but music. All right, I'm already making the final touches on that now. So the first video will probably last about 2 hours maybe of just straight music. You'll see that over on our Samba Tree YouTube page, okay? So yes, I'm very excited about that and looking forward to that. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Again, thank you so much for tuning in to this broadcast. So glad that you guys can join us here. It is 73 degrees right now in beautiful, I would say sunny Arizona, but right now the sun is set now because, we're getting into the winter months. So, when that happens, even though our time doesn't necessarily change here in Arizona, like we don't do the whole setting the clocks backwards or forwards. We don't really do that. But nonetheless, I mean, you could tell like around 5:30 or so, it starts getting dark or whatever. So we're in that time of the year right now. But it's also, this is the time of the year where it's very beautiful. It gets cooler outside and it is quite nice. So again, so I hope you guys have had a wonderful day. Today is also Tuesday. And do you believe it? I thought we just literally entered into November and we're now probably halfway through November already. I mean, ain't this something? We're literally like halfway through November literally already. So time is really flying, isn't it? So I hope you guys are doing well. And again, thank you so much for joining us. Just real quick, I'll just bring this up here on our on the screen here, and then we'll just go ahead and jump right into our conversation that we're going to have this evening. Make sure, again, you are on our mailing list, on Cybertree mailing list. In fact, we had an email go out today, just as a way of encouragement, just an encouragement. Yes, we're a business, but also, we want to encourage people, to prioritize yourself. And, we want to see your health and wellness to be at its A game. That's what we're all about here. And that's what we commit to here over at Cybertree.com. So make sure you check this out. These are starting to go out now. I walked by there, and 8 herb malt tea, vitamin and mineral brew. If you didn't get you better get yours, and we really want to hear back from people on this. But I know for me, this thing is the bomb. It's like, think of a fruit punch, but it's just all herbs. And the taste is wonderful, and it is packed with so many different things. I'll just tell you real quick what's in here. For those of you who didn't catch us: nettle leaf, moringa leaf, hibiscus flower, soursop leaf, horsetail, burdock root, cat's claw, or rather not cat's claw, oak straw, and rose hips. That's all that's in this thing. And man, this thing is really something. So you want a healthy alternative for your family? That's a great way of doing it. That's something that we developed here ourselves here. I told you, we going to be our own solution. That's how we think, and that's how we encourage many of you to think the same way. The answers are within you. Okay. And make sure you remember, we still are running our up to 30% off promo over at Cybertree.com. Make sure you check that out, where we got a ton of natural and wellness things there. And just make sure you check all that out. Okay. I don't want to spend too much time on that, but by now y'all should know the drill. Cybertree.com. All right, let's get into the conversation we're going to have this evening. And what we're going to talk about here is, hold on, I got to keep sending this. Let me see here. Give me just a moment here. Sorry. All right. So there you go. I had to send a quick text out here. All right. So what we're going to talk about here is this, many of us, we are very familiar with hearing people say, and it's particularly black folks that say this: Jesus is black. Now, as I said just a moment ago, I'm not here to say that he isn't. Okay, I'm not going to argue against that. If that is what you choose to believe, that's your choice. That is your choice. What do I always say? Belief in itself does not always equal fact, or it doesn't. Belief is a belief, but facts, regardless of what you believe, are facts, and truth is what ultimately stand. But I'm not here to debate on the color of Jesus. We're not doing that tonight. But what we're going to look at is the deeper meaning behind this, and this whole thing about this debate on not just Jesus, but also many, you got numbers of people who say that pretty much everybody in the Bible is black. Moses, you name it, everybody, literally every individual mentioned in the Bible is black. You got people who will even go as far as saying that the Bible is the black man's history book. And people will stand on that. Now, what I do on this platform, I don't really concern myself with what color Jesus or the disciples were or whatever. I don't really, or, any other character. I don't care. I personally don't care. I don't. Okay. What I do care about is the historicity of the Bible. Does it line up with actual, factual, proven history? Okay. When you go beyond the Bible, does it line up? Is it actually true? That's what I care about. Regardless if you want to, argue about, his hair, what color, what type texture he had. Did he have 4C hair? Did he have 4A hair? I don't care. I personally don't care. Okay. That none of that I personally do not care about. Okay. And I would hope that whoever God you're serving, it's not based off of just color alone. but you're actually looking at the factual historical record. Now, what, particularly Hebrews would tell you is the way that God, showed his love towards us is by sending us into slavery and not pretty much doing anything, just kind of watching us crying out to him as we were being beaten and raped and killed and tossed over the deck and all of that. Crying out and just, to what they're saying, that they were crying out to Yah. That's what their claim is. And we've already talked about that. But whatever gods that they are, our ancestors are crying out to, well, they didn't really seem to care too much as, our women were being raped and beaten and children were being separated from their parents and the whole nine. And what religion has done is basically told us that, this is because we turn our backs from him, he turned his back on us. And so this is our punishment because we are the chosen, we are the set apart. So we get the worst of the punishments. And so it's a way of basically getting you as a follower to tolerate and to make sense of the brutality that our ancestors experienced and went through. But when you stretch it all the way out and say, okay, well, I can point to many ancestors who did do all of these things. They did follow the Bible. They did do this. They did repent. They did go through all this. But still, they ended up being the sickest. They still ended up being this. They still ended up being killed. All of this stuff still happened to them. Even though the Bible says all you got to do is cry out and do this, I'm going to come down and I'm going to take it. It doesn't matter. You understand? So when I start presenting these kind of basic, talking points or, whatever, these are basic things. Typically what I encounter from a lot of individuals is, no, Jesus is black. Jesus is black. That's all I care about. Jesus is black. That's it. That's all I care about. He's black. Everybody else in the Bible, they're black. That's it. That's all they care. But when someone like me, I'm just asking basic questions about, okay, let's carry this all the way out. When we look at, for example, some of the the examples of, some of the miracles, for example, if we're talking about Jesus changing the water to wine or, feeding the 5,000 with the 5 loaves and the 2 fish and all of that. Were these original things or were there stories that predated these claims in the Bible? And when you start digging, you will find that, these stories that are in the Bible actually were inspired by stories that took place hundreds, if not more years ago, prior to the Bible even being written. Now, in our class, in our seminar that we did, Breaking the Chains, then I would encourage you, if you haven't checked that out, go check that out. We go through a lot of this stuff in great detail, and we provide you with much information that you can take and you can do your own research and you can hold it against actual history. And unlike the little tool that we showed you the other day, where they literally put people in a walled garden and they say, don't you dare ask any questions about any other history books because we only trust in one book and that's it. We don't do that. I say, open all the books, open them all, because we're trying to get to what's really going on here. And we want to ask these questions and without fear or feeling intimidated for asking them. You understand? So that's what we do here, and that's what we encourage. So that's with that in mind, that's how we're going to address this. We're going to talk about this tonight. A lot of times when you hear people say Jesus is black, who do you think? This is a question I'm just going to throw out to you. Now, to you, that may be very empowering to say that, right? Okay, it's very empowering to sit back and to think that, wow, Jesus is actually black and he looks like me. In fact, I have on our what is it? Is it long form history? Let me see if I can pull that up right quick here. I uploaded a video We have another channel. It's a smaller channel. It's called Long Form History, where we delve into some more deeper things there. And let's see, Long Form History channel. Hopefully it'll come right up. If not, I don't feel like digging this up here. Let's see, Long Form History channel. And of course, I can't find it without me having to switch things up around and all of that. Let me see. I have it on my phone. Let me just pull this up here. But this is a video that I actually posted recently the other day over on that channel. And let me get it here for you. It's a very short video, but here it is. Here it is. Here it is. It's right here. And let me just airdrop that over here, and let's take a look here. Very simple, to the point, right straight to the point video. Here it is.
His hair was white like wool. That means he had hair just like ours.
Son, let me see that. Son, they're talking about the color of his hair. They're not talking about texture. You are putting that in there.
I'm just saying. You know, for years I used to, you know, we have, as black folks, we have so wanted to see ourselves in this book that when you read that passage, when it's describing, you know, what Jesus looked like and all of that, the scripture literally says his hair was white as unto wool. It doesn't say his hair was wool. But a lot of folks have ran with that and said his hair, they're saying that his texture was wool. It's not saying that. It's not saying that. And I've wondered that for years. But, you know, those are little things that just kind of get overlooked. But anyway, who do you think, when you say that, when people say that Jesus is black, yes, it's empowering to say that. But you also know that it's offensive. It's an offense to other people. What I'm going to ask you tonight is, who do you think is offended at that? When you say that Jesus is black, we could talk about the other, you know, everybody else in the Bible, you know, is black, but let's just focus on Jesus. When you say Jesus is black, it's empowering to you, but you also know it's offensive to somebody else. You can answer it in the chat if you like, or you know, like many people, they just sit back and listen. Who do you think really is offended by that? Well, while you're thinking about that, what I want to do is I downloaded a bunch of videos here that I wanted you to kind of take a look at, because we're going to come back to that in a moment. But when you sit back and you listen to Hebrew Israelites and what they teach and what they put out, there are mainly two groups that they really focus their attention on. Obviously, they go after, depending on what camp or whatever it is, the primary focus is black folks, right? They're black folks, but, you know, then you start getting into some of these other camps that start focusing on some of these other groups, Puerto Ricans, the Colombians, and all this, you know, whatever. And they claim that, they're all part of Israel, right? That's what they teach, right? But that's some camps. Other camps, they just teach that only black folks are the true Israelites. That's what they teach, right? And so, so anyway, but when you listen to the core message, regardless of who you're listening to, who is it when they are talking about the enemy? And usually they describe the enemy of black folks as being whom? Mostly at times it's white people. So it's white people that they talk most negatively about, but it's also another group. It's Christians. Now, remember, it was a video I did recently where we talked about the similarities between Hebrew Israelites and people who practice Judaism. And we literally went line by line, and I just gave you a bunch of things where I said where they share an interest. They have shared common threads here. And the common thread between practitioners of Judaism and Hebrew Israelites is that they have a long record of making it very clear that they have a somewhat of a dislike of Christians. Okay. And you will find Jews that will work with Christians. But when you listen to their rabbis, and then it's not all their rabbis, but many of their rabbis do share this belief about Christians. So I downloaded some videos here, and we're just going to kind of rapid fire and go through these videos right quick. So let me get these videos up. I'm just going to be dragging and dropping them and going through one after another. Okay. So let me start with this one. Okay. So here we go.
Is if Esav and Yishmael ever came together, if they ever united. Says the Gemara, if Edom and Yishmael ever united, they would destroy the world. You can never mix Cain and Hevel together. And that's why we wish both of these ummahs in their war against each other, bracha v'hatzlacha. My message to both of them is we wish both of them tremendous hatzlacha. They should wipe each other out. None of them should say. Both sides should mamish be matzliach as much as possible. We wish both sides tremendous hatzlacha in their avodah of wiping out the other party.
You guys are worshiping one Jew. That's a mistake. You should be worshiping every single one of us, because we all die for your sins every single day. And that's exactly what's going on here. We're all God's firstborn, and we're dying for your sins right now because the Jewish people in the land of Israel are the bulwark against the orcs.
You have 6 billion idol worshippers who makes God angry every second of their life. Indian, Chinese, Japanese, Tibet, Nepal, Thailand, so many. India alone is 500 million. China is 2 billion. So many, 2 billion Christians, which are idol worshippers. Between Chinese, Hindus, Buddhists, and Christian, at least 6.5 billion people are idol worshippers that, according to the Torah, do not have the right to live. Idol worshipper goy, it's death penalty. Not only Jews, even a goy who bow down to an idol, who believe in JC, deserve death penalty.
So some people told me that when Messiah comes, the non-Jewish people will become the slaves of Jewish people. Is that true or is that not true?
That is right of the Bible, that every nation is come to helping to the Jewish people to accomplish the God's word, and to helping to the Jewish people to pray and to bring the sacrifice and to bring the peace of the world, because we only here to give the service for the world. That is the mission that we have. Yeah. And if the world is understand the beautiful service that we have and that God is given for the Jewish people to serve the world, is coming to helping that we can.
You're saying, correct me if I'm wrong, once the non-Jewish people understand what a great mission the Jewish people have to serve the God, they will be serving the Jewish people willingly?
Yes, is helping the Jewish people to accomplish the mission, because we're here only for you. We mission to give the service for you, to pray for you, to bring the sacrifice for you. And that is the God's choice, the Jewish people, that is believe that the Jewish people is correct people to accomplish the God's volunty and to give the service for the world.
So if it's voluntary, so is it slavery? Are they slaves or are they not slaves?
That is only the people and the world is understand the volunty from God and the correct service from the Jewish people that is good for the world. Okay. If you have a person that is giving you the best service, you want with plan happiness to helping the person that is give you the service.
So willing slaves.
Yes, yes.
So willing slaves.
Yes, yes.
So willing slaves.
Yes, yes. Because he's understand God is bring the understand for the people with happiness.
Okay. Okay. And is this based on the Torah or the Talmud?
Also in the Torah and also in the Talmud.
Okay.
So there's similarities there. Now, some of you, that last guy, the way they edited, they had it sped up, I guess, to try to meet that 3-minute mark or whatever. But, you know, in the end, what he was basically saying is that they believe, based on the Torah and the Talmud, that they are going to be the appointed ones above all humankind on that great day or whatever, right? And that everybody else is going to be slaves. Well, who else says that? Who else teaches that? They teach that, right? But who else teaches that? Hebrew Israelites, don't they? Very interesting. I want you to put earmarks by these things here as we kind of going along here. It's not going to be a lot tonight. It could have been, but I literally cut some things down because I wanted to get into some other things, but I said, no, let's just keep it focused here. Just a few more things I want you to keep in mind here. Okay. I did verify this, by the way. She said this many years ago. This is a Jewish activist. She said this. She said the white race is the cancer of human history. Okay, so she said that. Okay, here is, and some of y'all, I'm sure, nodding at that. Okay, all right, that's fine. All right, let's take a look at this one here. All right, here we go. These are books, and if you have, I remember, I guess in the early 2000s, I used to be in a lot of this stuff, like reading some of this, like Tim Wise, and I was very familiar with some of these works on here. White Trash, another one. A lot of these books that pushed out this same themes, if you've ever taken a look at the authors, in most cases they're Jewish. It's the same thing when you look at, some of these articles that you'll see in these major publications like New York Times. And I mean, there's many of them where articles that really are saying some very derogatory things towards white people. But they'll say, that because the author themselves, they'll speak derogatory against white people while somewhat being positive towards black folks. And you start seeing a pattern. It's like, because once you look at the author, it's like, okay, a lot of these people are Jewish. And then when you start reading a lot of their work, they do a lot of promoting of interracial marriage and stuff like that. And it's very odd because they themselves, if you really want to get into deep Judaism itself, they don't really like interracial stuff. I mean, you do have it to some degree over there, but it's when you start getting more and deeper into the religious part of it, they don't promote that at all. One more thing I want to show you I have seen personally for years on, platforms like Twitter or whatever, on various social media platforms. I'm trying to make this a little bit bigger here. You will also see that many of them, even though they may have white skin, they will make it very clear that they're not white. And so they know how to play in that space a lot, and they will, on one hand, talk about, like, for example, here, white privilege is very real and acknowledging the problem is the first step. And then you go back, you look at another tweet and they're like, I'm Jewish. Here's another one. White people, this isn't about us. Notice that. This isn't about us. This isn't about us. This isn't about us. Right? And then you go to the same person. What did they tweet later? I don't want to sound too controversial, but I'm a Jewish person. White people are awful, like we really are the worst. We. Notice the pronouns they're using here. White people are the worst. They're awful. And then the same person, my ancestors were Jewish. Here's one more here. All of us white people are extremely privileged. Then you go over here. I'm proud of my Jewishness. I'm proud of who I am. They do this all the time. They do this literally all the time. Now, when I'm sitting here and I'm listening to all of this, and I see these trends, you got to start thinking, you got to step back for a second and say, now they're saying some of the same things I'm hearing Hebrew Israelites saying, right? Well, let's go back now. All right. So let me just offer this to you. What I started off this broadcast, this little broadcast that we're doing here. When you say, as a black person, when you say Jesus is black, do you think Jews are offended at that? I'll give you a moment to think about that. I'll give you a moment. I really would like to see somebody answer that, and not just with a yes or no, but just give a brief explanation in the chat if you don't mind. And I'll give you guys about a minute because I know there's like a slight delay. But do you think that Jews are offended when we say that, when we declare that Jesus is black? I just want to give you a moment to think about that, okay? Just a moment while I'm getting something else here together here. Just a moment. Just going to give y'all a little time to get that together there. All right. I'll just sit here for one more moment here, and then, then I'll just go on about what I'm saying. Okay. Okay. Yeah, very good. You're on the right track there. Post break 1082. I'll just put that on here. Very good. Yep. Very good. And then here's Rachel Twin. Very good. All of y'all, you getting it. You're getting it. And I'll put this up on the screen here too. Very good. Very good. Very good. All right, let's go on. All right, so let me show you, because you guys are on the right track. You're definitely on the right track. Okay, so I took the time and I went to the ADL's page. I went to the ADL's webpage. And the ADL, that's the Anti-Defamation League. And they are, they're going to make sure they stay right on point and pinning the tail on a donkey when they believe that someone is a anti-Semite. That's the game they play. But I found this to be quite interesting here. If you go to their page on Black Hebrew Israelite Movement, of course, they were going to have a page on that. And I want you to pay close attention to the first or second lines here. All right. So the first line says, Black Hebrew Israelites are not the same as Black Jews or Jews of color. And then he said, not all Black Hebrew Israelite organizations are anti-Semitic or extremists. So what does that imply? What that implies is basically they really don't have too much of a problem with a black person saying saying that someone or somebody's in the Bible had dark skin. They really, or someone today, I should say that. Let me back up. They don't have a problem with someone today, a black person, saying that they are Jewish or of Jewish origin. They don't have a problem with it. They're telling you this right here. But if clearly there's some boundaries here on, how far you can go with that. But they acknowledge that. In fact, and we've talked about this in great length, on this platform too. If you go and look at, for example, the commandment keepers, you got to go all the way back. See, we go all the way back to the earliest possible place. I mean, when I tell you I poured hours and days into really trying to find, okay, what is the origin? When did black folks start projecting themselves in the Bible? Of course, if you go through slavery, the days of slavery, a lot of black folks, when we would hear the story about Moses and then the children of Israel coming out of Egypt and all of that stuff, we saw ourselves in that narrative, but we never really saw ourselves as being black, like Moses was actually black. We didn't go that far with it. You don't see that happening until the late 1800s. Okay. And we've talked about that, where you're starting to see the early birth of the Hebrew Israelite movement. And then it went into full bloom once it moved to Harlem. Okay. And that's a whole nother thing there. But in Harlem, do you want to know who helped bankroll the Black Hebrew Israelite movement in its earliest form? Well, we can take the Italians and the Polish people out of that. We could take the Greeks out of that too. And even the Asian, we could take them out too. You know who it was? It was Jews. Jewish people helped to bankroll the earliest stages of the Hebrew Israelite movement. What we see today was brought to you by the very people that some of y'all say are fake. And I've given you images and stuff like that. I've showed you how these earliest congregations, these earliest Black Hebrew congregations, they actually were working hand in hand in partnership with Jewish synagogues in the city. And some of those Jewish synagogues in the city were actually helping them to purchase buildings. In some cases, as the Jews were moving out of Harlem, they were leaving behind their synagogues. And they said, hey, listen, y'all want them? You can go there and get it. And in fact, today, those buildings are still standing. Right? So this is all historical fact. Okay. So Jews. And so today, when you look at commandment keepers, which goes all, they have a long history. It's all black folks, and they work hand in hand with Jewish people. So they don't have a problem with you claiming to be Jewish, or, you know, people in Africa claiming to be Jewish. They don't have a problem with that at all. But there are some clear boundaries on just how far you can go with it. Okay. So what I would submit to you is this, is that they're not offended by that. If you think that you declaring Jesus is black, or, you know, people in the Bible are black, if you think that's kind of some kind of, you know, finger in their eye or something like that, it's not. But what I just showed you is that these people, Jewish people, and I'm going to say Jewish people, I'm talking these religious Jews, they do have some very serious issues when it comes to white people and Christianity. They have some very serious that. Now, when you go to the other side and you listen to Hebrew Israelites, they too have a strong issue when it comes to whites and Christians. I mean, name me a Hebrew platform where they're not bashing against Christians. Name me one where they're not bashing against white people. But they will definitely hold their punches to a certain level when it comes to Jews, won't they? You understand? So again, what you have to understand is this: the way this system works is that you may not be in total agreement with these people, but what is being understood is this, is that, hey, listen, we benefit more by just maybe pumping the brakes on some of our stuff that we will go off on you. Normally, we would just completely just obliterate you. But you're actually attacking the very people that we're attacking, the very people we don't like. You're doing it. So why should we attack you? We may say something every now and then and, you know, go off on you a little bit and rattle the cages a little bit, but you're doing a very, very good job. You're going after these white people. You fine. And then every now and then someone may come up and say something, yeah, but these, talk about them folks, they're the fake people and all that. They go, Now you're going too far with that. You've gone way too far. They'll pull up that rank real quick here. They'll pull up that rank very quickly. Let me give you something here. I wasn't going to get into this tonight, but I just want to give you just a little bit of what I was going to talk about. Okay. I was going to give you, because this is something that I had really noticed. As you get older, you begin to go back and you begin to really analyze certain things that may have happened in the past. And one thing that I have been analyzing in particular lately, during the Kyrie Irving situation. Y'all remember that? Kyrie Irving, part of the Brooklyn Nets. You remember he tweeted a link to Ron Dalton's Hebrews to Negroes. That's all he did, is put a link up. And do you remember how people just went off on that? It was like a bomb was dropped. You remember that? It was literally like a bomb was dropped. Oh my goodness. How dare you do that? So we can also add, I forgot that thumbnail that I made the other day. I should have added Kyrie's face to that. But he was another one that had to bow the knee. Another multimillionaire, black millionaire that had to bow the knee to the chosen tribe because of a link that he posted. He didn't even say anything. It was just a link. That's it. And they went as hard and they drove that man off the team. I mean, they did everything they could. They had to be done with them. How dare you post a link to that? All right, remember that? But let's play this out a little bit more, because see, I remember some of the details of that. And I got even more details like I was going to get into tonight, but like I said, again, maybe I'll do this in another video. Now, what I found to be quite interesting about that whole episode is that here on one side, you got Ron Dalton. He's got his whole book series, Hebrews to Negroes, where he is making the claim that black folks are, in fact, the true people of the book, right? He's making that claim. On the other side, you had another group, IUIC. Okay. Now, for the most part, there are some differences between the things that IUIC teach versus Ron Dalton, what he teaches in his books. There are some differences there, but for the most part, they agree. They agree that black folks are the chosen people. That's what they believe. Now, you would think that would be a match made in heaven, right? They should be fine. They should be good. In fact, do you remember? It was the night that Kyrie Irving, his team, this was at the Barclays Center. The night that they were going to have a game when this whole thing blew up, and then there was a game. You know, at one of these evenings, it was I think it was like November 20th. I was looking into this, and who shows up? Who shows up in full support? IUIC. IUIC shows up. And they didn't just show up like, just a few of them. It was hundreds and hundreds of them that showed up in the streets. Now, I really looked into this. Because I was like, okay, this is New York City. Okay, this is New York. This ain't New York State. This is New York City. And I don't know. Maybe I'm a little naive, but I don't know if who could get a protest that quickly with all this hype going on right now, especially that with the height of anti-Semitism. We're not going to tolerate in New York. We're not going to tolerate anti-Semitism in New York. But yet you allow IUIC march by the hundreds down the street just like that. And so that was always a head scratcher to me. I was like, okay, if this is so anti-Semitism and the ADL has labeled them an anti-Semitic group, how did they just all of a sudden get a fast pass to just go in and go out and march? That was very interesting to me, how that all went down. Because I'm like, okay, if one group is anti-Semitic, Ron on this side, then they must be too, because y'all got them listed on the ADL, but you giving this person all this hellfire and brimstone, but this group, wink, wink, you ain't got no problem with them apparently. Let's take it even a step further, shall we? South Africa. Same thing, because the media, when I tell you they were going hard after him, they were going hard after him. I'm talking about Ron. They were going very hard after him. Do you remember in South Africa, some of y'all may have followed this, I certainly did. South Africa, all he wanted to do was to show his movie. Okay, he was going to show his movie in a theater. It was like a really nice theater there or whatever. And the Jews of South Africa, yes, there's a significant Jewish population in South Africa. They got together and they said, we are not going to allow this movie to happen. It is not going to play here at all. It's not. We're not going to allow it. And they got together and they pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed. I think eventually he was able to get it played somewhere or whatever, but they took it. It was in the courts. It was a big thing. Like, they made this into a big thing. This movie will not come here. Now, for those many like Hebrews looking at this on the sidelines, they were like, see, the truth. They are afraid of the truth. That's what it is. Let's pump the brakes a little bit. Because what he was saying ain't no different than what IUIC had been saying for years in South Africa. Yes, South Africa, look it up, go on Twitter, go on YouTube or whatever. IUIC has been marching by the hundreds in streets of cities like Johannesburg. You'll see them. But you got IUIC I thought they were anti-Semitic, but they don't have any record. I looked it up. There was no record of the Jewish community or whatever going against IUIC and telling them, no, we don't want any marching. But then Ron comes, he wants to show his movie. All of a sudden it's, nope, the bridge too far. Really interesting there. And then what I also found interesting was what was it? IUIC and Ron Dalton, they had a big fallout. The videos are all on YouTube. Some of y'all maybe have followed it. Some of you remember or whatever. Huge fallout. And it was just over some dumb stuff. It was like, who's Japheth and all of this stuff. And it was really came down to the chart. The whole 12 tribe chart. That's really what it came down to. I mean, Ron wasn't, but they were cussing him out. And this one guy, he was talking about, I would have called him a nigga, and all, he was, should I even play it? I should play it. Let me see if I can pull it up here. That would be, let me look under here. This was really something. It was really something. I was sitting here watching this. Oh, yeah, I think this is it right here. It's about, let me just play it for you. So, and not only this, I think I will play it. But when that whole Kyrie Irving thing broke out, IUIC was like, yes, this is what we're talking about. They was actually cheering this whole thing on because they said, finally, the world is waking up to the truth. But then all of a sudden it just flipped and all of a sudden they just couldn't stand Ron. It was really interesting. So let me pull this up. And this is all tied to what I'm saying here. This is all tied to the main topic. But let me pull this up here. Right. Sorry for scaring y'all like that. Hold on. Now there's going to be a guy narrating or whatever. So if you can get through that, then you good. But I want to play just a little bit of this because I want to show you just how nasty this thing came out. IUIC again went from cheering this whole thing on, just like a lot of these other smaller YouTube channels. And then all of a sudden they started throwing Ron under the bus. It was really something to watch. But let's take a watch and a listen to this video. It's not long at all, but I just want you to just see how this thing was playing out.
The Asians or the Chinese are, I believe, Ammon and Moab. Is that correct, Bishop?
Yep.
Okay. So if the white race are the Edomites, and you said on Donato's channel that all Africans are Israelites except for the Nilots, we know that the 12 tribes chart tells us that all Latinos, Hispanics, and Native Americans and Negroes are Israelites. And the white man is an Edomite. So basically the whole North America, Central America, South America, they are all the descendants of Abraham. When talking about the white man, if the white man is Esau and the Latinos, Hispanics, Native Americans, and Negroes in the Americas are the Israelites, then they are all the descendants of Abraham.
He was nice to you, bro. He was nice to you. He was very, very nice. Bishop, I'm glad you kept your composure, because I would have said, nigga, did you not hear me tell you no? He was very, very nice. Let it play.
Now, again, I want you to understand, because, see, I remember these details here. I want you to understand that IUIC, when this whole thing came out, Kyrie Irving put his book, put a link to his documentary and all of that. IUIC was totally on board. They were cheering this whole thing on. But something happened where all of a sudden, they couldn't deal with them. They couldn't. And I'm not saying this in support. Don't think that, you also now you're supporting, you believe in right. No. I just want you to just listen to this whole thing here, okay?
No.
How so?
You're trying to say that everybody in North, Central, and South America is an Israelite. That's wrong. Because anyone whose father...
That's not what I asked you.
Hold on, Ron. Allow Bishop Nathaniel to respond.
Anybody whose father is Caucasian, like many of the Latinos are mixed with black, white, and indigenous. So anyone who comes from Esau, so-called Caucasians, those are not Israelites, whose fathers are Edomites. The native indigenous people and the blacks, those are Israelites. So if your father comes from that, then you are an Israelite. And this is why Christ said, let the wheat and the tares grow together. And at the end, let the angels separate them.
Because we don't know exactly who's who. Okay? But you're looking for something to try to make it look like you deep. And you will easily get dismantled and handled. You will eat this easy. What you're putting forth is easy to dismantle. Keep letting it play. Keep letting it go.
From another. Because we can't go so much off of looks. We go so much off the spirit. And at the end, the angels are going to deal with it. Whoever's not Israel, the angels are going to separate them.
Thank you.
Whoever is Israel, the angels will gather them in.
Okay, I don't think you understood what I'm saying.
Now he's trying to act like we don't understand. We get this question every night in Clubhouse, where they're trying to make us say something that we're not saying. And they keep repeating it over and over like it's going to change. So you now on social media saying he ran and he didn't answer you. You're a...
I can't take the guy's voice. I'm sorry. I just wanted to play it now so you can get the point. There was a little bit more. There was something else that was said later, but I literally cannot get, I can't get past the dude's voice. I really can't. I just can't. I'm sorry. Okay. But I want you to see how this had played out. They went from rah, 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 we're on Team Ron and everything he's saying because the people are finding out the truth, to all of a sudden it was just like this. We can't stand the dude. And so even now he's still, he ain't where he was, in terms of the popularity and stuff that he had in the Hebrew space. But I just found that to be quite interesting that on one side, this guy is a total anti-Semite. We got to get rid of him. But then on the other side, you got these guys that will march in streets by the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. And it's okay. It's tolerable. And so why did I bring those two dynamics up? I brought those two dynamics up because, see, on one side, what Ron was at least doing, like I said, I may have parted ways with that belief system, but you can at least say this, that what Ron was doing, because to my knowledge, Ron wasn't necessarily going out and being as dogmatic as, let's say, IUIC and a lot of these other Hebrew camps are, in saying that all white people are, Edomites are all white people. They're going to be judged and all this other stuff. Ron wasn't really saying that. He wanted to take a more nuanced look at all of these groups, and he's got, you give him time, he will have a whole backstory about every group and how all these groups tie to people in the Bible and all that other stuff. But he wanted to look at the details, right? That was Ron. Look at the details of all of these different groups, including the people who call themselves Jews. And he was going through different things like science and all this other stuff, DNA. He was going through all of that. IUIC ain't doing that. They weren't doing that. They just blanketly put all of their energy towards white people and Christians. They put all of their energy towards that. But this is my little theory. This is my little tiny theory. And again, you go with it what it is. I'm not saying it's fact, but as long as you stay on the talking points of being anti-white and anti-Christian, if you're Hebrew, you're not going to have any issues. It's the moment you start questioning them in the details of their origin story. Once you start going that way, now all of a sudden you're going to have some problems. And that is what I saw in this whole situation here. Now, when you comb through IUIC's, all the thousands upon thousands of videos that go in there on YouTube, the overwhelming majority, they got a lot of smoke for white people and Christians, particularly black churches. They'll go after black churches. The guy in North Philadelphia, a pastor, very popular pastor out here, they'll go on. We're going to show up at his doorstep. You remember that? They're going to show up and we're going to do a whole breakdown and we're going to throw the gauntlet down on these pork chop preachers and all that. Okay, now take your behind, go to Brooklyn and go to those synagogues, bring that same energy. Oh, they won't do that. Isn't it interesting? The IUIC, they will preach on every street corner in New York City, but they won't go to up in Brooklyn. They won't go in the Brooklyn area where they are. They won't teach in those corners. I wonder why. You understand? Are you seeing what I'm seeing here? They will go on every street corner in New York City, but they won't touch the areas that have a huge population of Jewish people. They won't even touch those areas. So what I'm trying to get you to is this, as we bring this to a close here, is that, listen, it doesn't, when you as an individual, black folk, you want to declare that Jesus is black, number one, it's not offending them because these folks do not even believe Jesus in the sense of they don't have any kind of, they don't revere him. In fact, someone just pointed out in their Talmud, they tell you exactly where they think Jesus is. And he's not sitting at the right hand of God or in heaven somewhere. They got him all the way downstairs taking a bath. If you know what I mean, all you got to do is read the Talmud. It tells you that. That's exactly how they think and feel about your Jesus. So you going out and saying Jesus is black, it doesn't do anything to them. They're like, okay, good. Tell them Christians that. Tell those Christians, get on this YouTube plantation and every day pound the pavement and keep telling them, reminding them that everybody in the Bible is black over and over again. And guess who's going to get ticked off by that? It's not Jews, it's white people. White Christians going to get ticked off by that because, of course, they don't want to hear that. And they, what do you mean? You know, and then it starts this whole thing. You know what I'm saying? That's so you are a pawn in their game. You're doing the work. That's by definition what a pawn does. A pawn, you just have little value and that's it. A pawn, just go march through the city. Don't do anything. Don't clean up the streets. Don't organize the community. Don't do all that. Just march through the streets. Just do your thing. Just show up and then leave. You know, as long as you're not getting the people pumped up to want to make a change and do something, just go on. Just, you know, we're cool. But don't ever question us. When you get to the level where you start questioning and going through history and start looking at our stuff, oh, no. See, you can't do that. You can't do that. And so this is why, as I bring this, I'm done. I bring this to a close, and this is why I tell people all the time, listen, what you choose to believe, that's up to you. I don't care. You know what I'm saying? I got people that follow us that are Hebrew. We got people that follow us who are Christians. I don't care. All right. What I do look at the end of the day is the bigger picture. And when I get people that come to especially on our page, who will try to mount all kinds of arguments. And then the moment I say, okay, let's look at the history book. Let's go beyond your Bible and let's verify what you're saying. Most of the time, 99% of the time, people won't do it. They will quickly flip it and make it into something. They'll start engaging in personal attacks because they cannot and will not do it. So you can, and it's like, I open it up all the time. I said, listen, I'm being very nice. Whatever that voice is in your head, I'm not the one yelling. Okay, that's you. Okay, I'm sitting up here and I'm trying to have a dialogue with you and I'm encouraging you, okay, let's look at history. Let's look at history together. Let's take a look. Let's look at the origin stories of these different stories that you stand on. Let's just take a few minutes. You got ChatGPT. It'll tell you in seconds if I'm lying or telling the truth. All you got to do is put it in. I'll tell you what to put in on your computer. I don't control ChatGPT or Grok or anything like that. I'll just tell you, hey, put this in and ask and see what comes up. But instead of doing that, people want to mount arguments. I don't have time for arguments off of what you choose to believe in. So again, if you want to choose that he's black, it doesn't matter. How does that translate to 2025? How does that translate to bringing families together in 2025? How does that translate in getting our people out of these hospitals? How does that translate into getting us to stop arguing and fighting with one another? How does that translate into building our communities and our schools and getting our people in our acts together? How does that translate? See, you telling me who's black and who ain't in the Bible, I don't care because it ain't translating to anything in 2025. It's not. So if you want to stand on that, then that's fine. If that makes you feel good, if that's what makes your teeth bright in the morning, if that's what gets you up in the morning and tucks you in at night, that's fine. That's you. I don't care. But the purpose of this broadcast was to get you to see how that belief is being used by the very people that you're calling fake. And I just laid it out to you Because guess what? They believe the same thing you believe. You can call them fake all you want, but you're being used. I mean, how many other areas do we need to point to where black folks systematically have been used by these people over and over again? How many examples do we need to see before people start waking up and realizing what's happening? You understand? So I hope you got something out of this, and I hope it really challenges you. Someone asked me earlier, they said, well, research isn't really my thing, but I would like to, they said, I really would like to learn. Where should I start? And I said, I saw it. I didn't answer it because I was in the middle of doing something, but I'll eventually get to them. But basically, this will be my answer. Number one, you have to be someone who's willing to stand on truth. And I mean, really stand on truth. You have to be that person, no matter what the cost is, no matter how much it makes you uncomfortable. You have to be willing to do that. Okay. And truth is about you and you only. I'm not thinking about I'm not sitting up here planning on different ways how I can get back and clap back at white people or Jewish people or whatever. I don't care about these people like that. I don't wake up like that, and that's the first thing on my mind, nor is it the last thing on my mind. I want to get myself right. I want to get my house in order, right? So you start off with that. Then you got to look at your belief system. What are the things that I have been clinging to and saying that this is what I stand on, this is my belief system? And then begin to write down, get you a book, get you a notepad or whatever, and begin to write down all the things that you have stood on and you have claimed as your personal belief. Write it down, right? Then once you write it all down, then take one at a time, and then you want to start researching, just ask basic questions. And see, hey, is this belief system, is this true? Is it rooted in truth? Or is this just something I just believe in because it makes me feel good? And then the answers you're going to get, you got to be willing to take them. That's why I say you take one at a time. You're not going to get through the whole list in one day. You take one at a time. You may do one a month, but you got to allow yourself to get through that. Because it's not easy. It's not easy. A lot of the stuff I say here, it's a lot of people that don't like, it makes them very uncomfortable, the stuff that we share on here. Makes them very uncomfortable. I had this one person leave a comment earlier. They were like, yeah, 95% of what he says is crap. And I said, well, yeah, you come back for it all the time. You must have a miserable life if the only thing you can come back to is crap. But I get that. I understand that. I'm not like personally offended. Why did they say that? No. But I do know that this kind of stuff, it does make you uncomfortable. And also finding out that you're being used and played like this. That's not a comfortable thing to admit to. But you are. Every time when you say that, every time you think it's actually making a dent, it's not. It's actually playing right into in the plans of the very people that you call fake. And you say that one day they're going to whatever, you're playing right into their hands by saying that. Okay. So my encouragement to you, dig into the actual history, focus on that. Okay. Stand on truth above all of that. Okay. All right. That's all I have. I didn't want this to be long at all. If you have any comments or questions or whatever, please put them in the chat. Would love to chat with you. But like I said, please, number one, put a complete thought. Okay, because again, I'm not that voice in your head. Number two, again, don't do a whole screen dump of a bunch of scriptures because I'm just going to look over it. Okay, we talking history. If you're going to bring up scriptures, that's fine. But I want you to cross-reference it. It only takes you a few seconds to do with actual factual history and see if it measures up. That's all we ask you to do. Okay. And that shouldn't be a hard thing to do at all. So anyway, that's all I have for you. Thank you so much for tuning in to this broadcast. And I think we covered everything. Well, we'll be back again, and we'll be talking again soon. You guys take care and enjoy the rest of your evening or day or whenever it is that you're watching this. Take care. See you soon.